heightened tensions between the US and China over the suspected spy balloon. As you may be aware, the US military downed the suspected Chinese spy balloon over the Atlantic Ocean and launched a mission to recover all the equipment from its debris. It drew a strong reaction from China, of course, which insisted that the object was a civilian balloon intended for meteorological research. Accusing the United States of indiscriminate use of force, China said it had seriously impacted and also damaged efforts and progress in stabilizing Sino-US relations. So with an eminent panel of experts, we will analyze the suspected spy balloon saga and how it has dealt a blow to the already strained US-China relations. Joining me in the studio is Professor Srikanth Kondapalli, Center for East Asian Studies, School for International Studies, JNU. Thank you, Professor, and welcome to the program. And joining us virtually is Ambassador Meera Shankar, former Indian Ambassador to the USA. Ambassador, welcome to the program as well. And Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, retired. He's a defense and strategy expert. General Kulkarni, delighted to have you on the program as well. Professor, the first word to you. A civilian warship used for research, as China claims, or a spy in the American skies. Which is the theory which is more believable?
Well, actually, since the Second World War, the Japanese used these balloons for missions, combat missions on the US, closer to the Pearl Harbor incident. And later on, the Americans used the balloons on the Soviet Union. And Chinese have used it extensively because of the low cost factor. Compared to the low Earth observation satellites, these have several advantages, like hovering for 2 or 3 days on a particular area, and that gives them advantage in terms of surveillance of anything. And so there have been a lot of reports about, during the Trump administration and the Biden administration, there are at least 3 times the balloon has gone up on the US territory. So it is not new, and so this suggests, and let me also say, it flew on Japan. It flew on Andaman and Nicobar Joint Command. It flew on Taiwan and other areas. So it is, we get information now that it has been all around.
So it's not something new, but perhaps because, you know, in this age of satellite technology, where countries use this particular technology to gather intelligence data, the fact that Chinese are actually using a spy balloon, is that coming more of a shock to everyone? And also the American intelligence agencies, perhaps it comes as a shock.
Surveillance balloons have some advantages. For example, they have synthetic aperture radars, which means that they can penetrate the clouds and see what they want to see. Number 2, they also have a lot of artificial intelligence related materials through which they gather information and process these and convey it back home. The most important advantage is that they are looking at an object for a long time, so which means it can also be used for laser weapons in the future, testing laser weapons, because they need temperatures, air movements, and a lot of other parameters. So they do it at a very professional level, sustainable level, and hence these are quite advantageous for anybody using the balloons.
General Kulkarni, how do you look at the entire spy balloon saga? It has, of course, escalated to a whole new level. Diplomatic tensions for the moment, a high-profile visit had to be cancelled. But do you agree that the spy balloons, the fact that A, they're cheaper and there are certain special attributes that they bring to this whole surveillance attack business, and because of which Chinese perhaps could have gone ahead with this idea? Or do you think that they were just testing the United States' ability to respond?
All things. You know, they are definitely testing the response of the United States. They are positively wanting to check how far would the United States go should they be doing what they're doing. It's also one of the means of gathering intelligence. If satellites are there, so are the balloons. There are various other means. We have, you know, even through space, cyber, so many things, your normal human spies all around. So you gather intelligence. There's one means of gathering intelligence, like the professor said, not just Second World War, even from French Revolution days, 1860, 1794, balloons have been used. And balloons are used normally. You see a hot air ballooning, you go up in the air, we see much better than what you would be seeing while you're on the ground. So obviously these balloons have an advantage because they can stand for a particular area for a longer time. And that advantage it has. And that is why over almost a week you found that the dispute was going on. They were conveying it. And now whatever way the Chinese might say, whether whatever it is, definitely not. The fact, if you see the flight path of the balloon, the way it has gone right from China over Canada, Alaska Islands, Aleutian Islands, then coming on to deep into the United States, I can now look back and, when we were deployed along the eastern Ladakh, numerous times these kind of things, objects would be reported by the sentries that this is happening. We would be reporting it back as to what is it that is, flying that the sentries are reporting. Now I can definitely, put 2 to 2 4 that the Chinese were always at it. The Chinese, they always find everything and anything. You see all the visits that take place in India, whether you find Xi Jinping coming, you'll find some kind of an incident that occurred in India. Similarly, you find after years, Blinken, some visit which was to happen, of some official visit that might bring in some better relationship between the United States and China. Well, you see what's going on. Chinese are known to be feeling very insecure. And that feeling of insecurity, the Chinese use all means, and definitely place where it was only primarily to see whether the missile site, the silo, the underground installations, what is it that there is. The Chinese will never be feeling secure till they get the information, and by all means, human intelligence, they will definitely use it. Now balloons, they've been using it for many years, and they will continue to use them. Satellites, and of course, then cyber is one complete, what you can be saying, that entire communication network that the Chinese are monitoring, they will be onto it. So Chinese will do, it is definitely a surveillance device, as you rightly said. It's cheap, and therefore it is much more reusable, it is retrievable, and again it can be used, the low-cost option that is available. But now that it has been shot down, and understand it is a surveillance device, well, we have got to be careful of the Chinese intention. Okay,
General, so the fact that, an insecure China doing all it can to gather intelligence data of its rivals, of a country like China, but from the point of view of the national security challenge that this has posed to America, is it something new, or have the Americans witnessed this kind of a national security challenge ever before?
Definitely. Yes. This has been there earlier also. They've done this in Texas earlier, and yet another 2-3 places the Chinese have done it. So it is nothing that the Americans are not aware of. Americans are fully aware of what the Chinese are up to. And even this particular balloon, they were sighted and they knew what it was all about. But the Chinese are wanting to convey it in a very polite manner. No, it's all weather, ballooning. It has nothing to do with sensitive this thing. But now that it has been brought down, I'm sure all of it has already revealed, and Pentagon has already released that this is a surveillance device. There is no denying the fact. And it is indicative. It is a security challenge. It is a challenge. Definitely it is a challenge. Because, there are various kinds of balloons. How much, even normally, even when we have night sentries, we see a certain amount. You see a scan a particular area. You can tell a man to be looking now he is going to look up in the sky also every now and then. Is he able to spot something that is moving? Well, the satellites are moving at night. When it's a pitch dark night, you can see satellites moving from place A to place B in a particular motion. Now you can see the balloons also. You could also see the lights of the on the balloons sometimes. So there are so many challenges. How difficult it is for people at night, day. Even we now need surveillance devices, not just basically dependent on human sentries standing there. Our own artificial intelligence to be used to ensure that what is going on in the sky, what's going on the ground, what's in front of us, what's behind. Oh, it is definitely very, very difficult. But then that's what the Chinese would want, that the life for the enemy should be made very, very difficult. It's challenging, but we are up to it. We can face challenge. As India, we can face challenge. Americans will also face challenge. If the Chinese who are going to, because they feel insecure, they are going to likely to be more isolated in the world, and the wolf warrior diplomacy is what makes China float. Otherwise, by now, people know, especially after the pandemic, where China stands, after what it has done, the zero-COVID policy, you saw how Xi Jinping was on the back foot. Knowing all these kind of things, and definitely after the Ukraine-Russian confrontation, you see what's going on. So the Chinese are definitely on the back foot, and we ought to be careful of it.
Ambassador, in the wake of the challenges that General Kulkarni spoke about, does it indicate towards a dangerous moment in this new superpower rivalry that we are witnessing?
Well, you've been seeing a very sharp deterioration in US-China relations in recent years, particularly in the wake of Nancy Pelosi, who was then the Speaker of the US House of Representatives, visiting Taiwan. The Chinese had resorted to live fire drills all around the island, violated their air defense identification zone, their maritime zones, and even fired missiles which had landed in Japanese waters. So that, I think, was really the low point. Since then, both countries made an effort to try to stabilize the relationship, even though the fundamental strategic competition between the two would continue. At their meeting in Bali, President Joe Biden and Xi Jinping actually agreed to re-engage on selected issues which may be of benefit to resolving critical global issues, including climate change and the stabilization of the global economy. I think these two were some of the more important issues they had agreed to re-engage on. And President Biden had informed Xi Jinping that while they would compete, the US would compete vigorously with China, they were not seeking conflict. And both sides should try to engage to see that there's no inadvertent conflict. So I think this incident will be a setback to the process, to the process of trying to bring in an element of stability in the relationship, which had become extremely volatile in the wake of the visit of Nancy Pelosi. It's going to be more difficult now to pick up the pieces. You have a Republican-controlled House of Representatives. Even in this incident, you saw that the Republicans were putting pressure on President Biden to shoot the balloon. And finally, they did in a responsible manner, not over civilian territory, but in the waters, so that no injuries took place on the ground. Now, we've had a lot of discussion on the why balloons when there are so many other means of communication. Now, the thing is that not only are the balloons more much cheaper than putting a satellite in orbit, they hover for a longer time over a particular spot, whereas satellites go into orbit and there's just a small window when they are covering an area. And the third is that they're actually more difficult to detect because they can fly at levels above the levels at which normal civil aviation takes place. So for all these reasons, it's one of the elements for information and intelligence gathering, along with satellite intelligence, cyber intelligence, human intelligence, and so on. So, because everybody likes to have multiple ways to verify the information that they have. And the only question is why at this juncture, when the Blinken visit was going to be scheduled and the, discovery of such a balloon over the US.
Absolutely. Multiple questions on the timing, particularly of how it was uncovered. But Professor, the manner in which the entire crisis has unfolded, a political storm has erupted, where does it leave Joe Biden? I mean, do you think that he's now in a typically more vulnerable position domestically?
Well, there is that debate between the Democrats and the Republicans on how to address the China question, and they have formed a congressional committee to address the China-related matters, and a senator has been appointed as the director for the China-related issues. it is a big issue since the Trump administration